Well, this was the picture earlier today. Lots of rain. Of course, it depends on where you are in Texas. If you're out east or south, this is kind of the picture of what it looks like if you're out north or west, 90 degrees and clear skies. I appreciate you checking back in with this next evening webcast here. I'm a little bit unprepared. I took a short nap before I woke up, so I had about like 10 or 15 minutes to prepare everything, and I only got about 3 slides up here. But this is the picture that we have on the SPC mesoanalysis. This is pretty similar to what we had yesterday. You remember we talked about that area of outflow air kind of covering this rough position, basically from Houston up to Dallas. It's pretty much the same pattern today. We still have the same dominant southeast flow from the Gulf. You can see that, like Dalhart and Amarillo, southeast winds at Fort Smith, southeast winds at, light and variable there at Lake Charles, but overall you can find a lot of easterly flow in here. But overlaid on that, we can see the boundaries are pretty much in the same position. Maybe the outflow from these storms has edged south a little bit, maybe a little bit further west. And you remember on the backside of these areas of showers, dew point is one of the best indicators because the temperature tends to go up and down depending on whether you're under the anvil, what kind of cloud material you have, but moisture is going to pretty much remain similar. So I can see we have 69, 52, 55. There's probably, it's really hard to pin down, but it looks like it's going to be somewhere in this area. We have 34 there at Hereford and 37 at Dalhart compared to 62 at Childress. So around here we start getting into the rain-cooled outflow air. And that looks like it's pushed all the way to the Pecos River Valley, back to the Davis Mountains, and it's pretty much covering a large blob of Texas. So the center of it is basically along the I-35 area into the hill country, and the southeasterly flow impinging on that cold bubble is mostly concentrated on this area here. So that's the reason we're seeing a lot of the showers south of Dallas. We did have some development further northwest, but those didn't hang around very long today. Let's take a look at a few other products here. We'll just pull something up randomly. That's the pressure. A lot of these fields come from the rapid refresh model. I would say I'm about 95% sure of that. This isn't like where they go in and analyze the METAR data and that kind of thing. That's what Digital Atmosphere does. The rapid refresh fields, though, those come in and they do some different tricks, like you can do supercell composite and keep track of your LCL, CAPE, and all that. And that's not stuff you can really do with METAR data. That's where you really need kind of like a model guess to what's happening. So you're kind of looking at maybe like, to a certain extent, the idealized picture of what's happening aloft. The patterns are going to be a lot more accurate towards the surface. So in this case, it's showing high pressure covering a large part of Texas. You can see that pretty much follows the pattern of that outflow bubble. And in fact, when we get on the west side, you can kind of see that trough. See that right there? That's what we call an inverted trough, because instead of finding high pressure poleward, we find it equatorward. So back here is where the low pressure area is, so that's what we call an inverted trough, and that probably marks the westward extent of the outflow boundary. We can kind of see maybe a similar picture here, maybe a little bit of inverted troughing here. That's probably corresponding to the leading edge of that outflow boundary. So those are some things you can look at right there. All right, what else do we have here? Mixing ratio is, let's see, the red here, this represents your theta E. This is kind of a blend of your temperature and dew point, strongly favoring the dew point. And basically, the higher your theta E, the more right on the sounding your lifted parcel will be. So if we lift a parcel from this area, that's going to be pretty far to the right on the skew T there. Now the thing is, this is under an outflow boundary, so it's being affected a bit by what's happening in the lowest 1,000 or 2,000 feet. So we can't lift that directly from the surface. We'd probably want to use an elevated parcel. If we have that, we would have to take a guess what's happening 2,000 or 3,000 feet above the ground. Maybe look at Lake Charles sounding and maybe Corpus Christi down there to get an idea what's going on there. But in any case, when you have like just regular warm day, May in Oklahoma, and you're expecting tornadoes later, these theta E fields can really help you out, and you might find maybe some of them are clustering in southwest Oklahoma, and that would be a sign to maybe watch conditions there if you're expecting development in a few hours. The visible satellite picture, that's probably going to look a lot similar to yesterday. Big area of junk here across Texas and Arkansas, and clear on the backside, and then we get out to Oklahoma or Colorado. We start picking up a little bit of upslope flow and orographic precipitation in the Rockies, which is the stuff here in the higher elevations is pretty much expected this time of year. Let's take a quick look at soundings. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because this can get boring pretty quickly. This might be what an hour-long seminar is good for. But this is showing 12Z. This is this morning at Fort Worth, so this is going to be a morning sounding. And this is showing humid conditions, almost saturated all the way up to 600 millibars, which is about 14,000 feet. So this is probably a large layer of clouds, assorted clouds in stratoQ, altiQ, and stratus and stuff like that, all the way up to about 14,000 feet. And above that, we start getting a little bit more dry air. And you can see that if we lift a parcel from any of these levels here, see, we lift that up, moist adiabatically, we get a tiny sliver of positive energy. See that right there? We can lift that parcel elevated, maybe from here. Because what's happening around East Texas and Central Texas and West Texas, it'll be similar to this, but you're going to see variations in the small scale. So maybe around Temple or Stephenville, you might find the sounding extending this way a little bit, maybe picking up a little bit of moisture, and that's the reason you tend to get these patches of storms maybe developing west of I-35 or east of I-35. That's kind of the fine grain that you can't get just looking at 3 soundings across the Texas area. There's a lot of small scale detail that we're just not capturing. So anyway, those are some things to look for, and I'll take a quick look at Oklahoma just to show you some of the drier air. So here we can see that at Oklahoma City, the moisture is a lot shallower. It's only about 100 millibars, or about 4,000 feet deep. And this looks more like a springtime sounding, that loaded gun where we have the low-level trace go upwards and then to the right at about 800 to 700 millibars. That's what we're seeing here. Dry layer aloft and strong lapse rates right here. So obviously we're not going to get storms there in Oklahoma because, say we lift from 90, which is their high today, then we lift some of this and maybe mix in the lowest 150 millibars. We're going to get a sounding kind of like that, and we get a large positive or large I'm sorry, large negative area, which is your cap, and then a sliver of positive area here. So the area north of, say, I-20 is pretty well capped. And I would imagine when you get up to Dodge City, you're going to see pretty much a similar thing, even either that or lots of dry air in the surface, in the low levels. Okay, we'll go ahead and wrap this up with just kind of a look ahead, what's going to happen over the next week or so. Hang on just a second. Okay, let's take a look at this right here. Starting out at 18Z, this is the GFS forecast, and it's showing kind of a split flow pattern across Texas. The main jet is way up in Canada, but we've got the small jet right here, and this is helping to keep things going with that low-level lift in Texas and a little bit of bulk shears aloft. And then what we're looking at over the next couple of days, kind of a continuation of that pattern, 40 to 50 knots up at 250 millibars up at about up around the I-40 area. And you can see this next wave moves down into the northern plains. This is getting around Saturday. So we might get some possibly some severe storm activity in the Iowa area, Minnesota, Illinois. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Maybe we'll cover that if there's a severe weather outbreak and pull up some GR level 2. Another trough, very progressive pattern. This is on Tuesday. And looks like that comes into phase with this other trough. See that right there? So that's going to give us another round of possible action around Thursday next week. So this troughing here out to the west, this is probably going to put us in a marginal pattern for severe weather. Of course, that's going to depend on what's going on in the low levels. But the bottom line is we're not going to be under a big stubborn high with 100-degree temperatures. We've got some weather going on. We're getting into westerly flow, kind of a change of seasons, and got a lot of stuff to look at here. There's a next wave coming on down, and some of that may be down here for September 1st, so that's getting out there a ways. Anyway, well, I hope you learned something. I appreciate you watching, and I hope we'll see you tomorrow night.